This week on Deep Space Pride, a gay Star Trek podcast, we talk about Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and we give a preview of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Johnson.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
I am pretty good for a Wednesday night. How about you?
I'm doing well. This is a little bit late. It's Wednesday at like 10:30, but I'm here for it. I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about Star Trek. What about you?
Yeah, I have been sleeping a little bit better these last couple of nights. So,
Oh, you're over your jet lag?
Well, it's not jet lag. So I don't know if I've talked a little bit about this, but I have not slept well since I had COVID. And including, I did sleep a lot on the plane ride out there. I did not sleep a lot on the way back. We've already kind of covered that territory, but overall, I just don't sleep more than 3 to 4 hours without waking up. And then I'm usually awake for a little bit.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah. So my sleep's been disrupted for several months now. And I actually, this morning, I woke up and I take melatonin occasionally, but I have not taken it the last couple of nights because it's kind of left me with a little bit of a fuzziness that I'm not enjoying in the morning.
A little loopy sometimes.
So, but this morning I was feeling fairly good and fairly rested. And I don't remember, I think I woke up once in the middle of the night, but I went right back to sleep. So I'm attributing this to a new probiotic that I'm taking, because that's the only thing that's really changed. And they say that the gut is your second brain or even your first brain. And so maybe COVID messed up my gut enough that that's been my problem with. We'll see. That's still to be determined, but we'll kind of see how this is rolling. So it's been less than a week since I've tried this, but that's the only thing that's really changed in my diet. So here's hoping that this continues and my kind of get back to my at least 5 or 6 hours straight of sleeping would be fantastic, but we'll see what happens. So I'm feeling pretty good today. How about you? What's going on in your neck of the woods?
It's funny. I feel like as we get older, we talk about sleep more. And it's like the weather becomes really fascinating and also sleep. Like, oh, how did you sleep? Like, oh, yeah, I was able to sleep for 6 hours uninterrupted. It becomes like really fascinating topic of conversation. I'm like, this is adulting.
It is.
It's so funny. No, because my sleep has been okay. Okay, now this is becoming a sleep podcast.
Yeah.
No, because the past couple of months I've had chunks of sleep, like 3 hours. I'll wake up and I'm like, what? And yesterday was fine, but it's like intermittent. Like once in a while, I'll just have like a night where it'll take a while to fall asleep, or like it's like chunks. It's annoying.
Well, the reason why I bring it up, and it's not, I like the whole thought that it's about adulting, but it's also about productivity, right? Every self-development podcast and book I listen to talks about, getting a good amount of sleep, and here are all the tips to get a good sleep. And granted, I don't follow every single tip, but I do see it on the productivity side during the next day. And
Sure.
So, but it is slow at work right now. So I am happy to say that, my productivity does not have to be at capacity. It can be a little bit more relaxed right now. So for a few more weeks. So until things start to pick up and people get back from vacation and meetings start to happen again, regular meetings.
September is in 2 weeks, and it's fall.
Yeah.
Basically, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But before that, we do get some new Star Trek finally after
yeah.
this
So you've
little.
watched most of it. Like, it's no secret to our listeners that we get that Paramount bestows us. Thank you, Paramount Plus, CBS, Viacom. I don't even know what to call them anymore. Um, no, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I
They
have no idea what
they
to call them.
they gave us early access to the episodes, and
Yes.
you've seen. Okay, so I think so. You've watched most of season 3 of Lower Decks. We are going to talk a little bit about Lower Decks without spoiling anything, obviously.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
going to spoil anything at
yeah, I
all.
haven't been. I just okay. For first of all, I haven't watched any of it. Like,
Which you're usually the one who, the minute we get the notifications, it's like three
correct.
seconds later, you're watching
Yeah,
it.
I think Lower Decks is just one of those shows which I enjoy, but I'm not like, oh my God, I need to watch it right now. And you probably get that. Like, it's enjoyable. I like it. But it's also not like I must find out what happens in the next episode. I mean, the whole Captain Freeman cliffhanger, it was like fine, but
Right.
it's not like Best of Both Worlds. I'm not like, oh my God, is she gonna
Yes.
make it?
Well, it's
Um,
also not like Strange New Worlds finale, which is,
oh my
Una is
God.
gone,
Yes.
taken
Yeah.
away. So
I
that
mean, there's
is a
much
whole
higher
thing.
stakes in Stranger Worlds, and Stranger Worlds is also very episodic, so they have that similarity. But
Yep.
Stranger Worlds is like, I mean, it's part of it's also like fresh. Like Stranger Worlds is fresh, so I think that was like I must watch it. But it's just different. It's like a different genre. It's like one of those shows, like not Stranger Worlds. Lower Decks is one of those shows that you can like pick up and put down, and it's fine.
Yes, I
And
agree.
right. Yeah. And
Yeah, I
also
agree.
because we have like a dearth of Star Trek because we don't even know what's happening after Lower Decks, right? We
No
think it's
idea.
going to be Prodigy. We've we speculated and most likely will be, but we haven't heard anything official.
Right.
So I'm also kind of like, I'm actually okay kind of waiting, like,
Hmm.
just like
Sure.
waiting for
Yeah.
it to come out. And sometimes the Paramount streaming app also doesn't have. I watch everything with closed captioning.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
there's a
Yes.
big fan of closed
Yes.
captioning because I hate missing names, like random names and
Yeah,
like
I agree.
pronouns,
Yeah,
names
that's
of
pretty much
planets. Like,
why.
wait, what they
Yeah.
call that planet? What was that? Who was that? Um,
Right.
so that sometimes helps me, like, and I get annoyed. Even when I was watching the Stranger Worlds previews, I was like, what? What did they just say? Like, and I rewind, like, I
Yeah.
still don't know what they said. Like, you know. Um, so it's just like it's very small, but I'm like, first of all, I'm not like, oh my God, like I can't wait. And second of all, it's like one of the shows that I can, just pick up, put down. So it's not like must consume all of it right this second. And third of all, the closed captioning thing, I'm like, I'm okay waiting and kind of, enjoying. And it's like I'm fine enjoying it with the rest of the universe, and letting it, just parse out. So especially since we don't know what's coming up next.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that. I put it on and just enjoyed it as I was doing other things and whatnot. So, yeah, I totally understand. I just,
Yeah.
it's fun to watch. I don't mind watching multiple times. I'll always watch it again on Paramount Plus when it
Mm-hmm.
comes out for the very reason that you just said. Um, so yeah, but I'm enjoying myself and I'm
Yeah.
actually watching it again for a second time. And
Oh my God.
yeah, and but
Come on.
I'm also anticipating where things are going. Like how, so we've gotten 3/4 of the season. I'm kind of wondering what the final, quarter of the season will be like. But that's just, curiosity, just like I'm curious, like, how are
Mm-hmm.
they? Well, I'm super curious about how they're going to resolve the Strange New Worlds cliffhanger. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
also slightly curious about how Discovery is going to play out this season. I
Mm-hmm.
am more curious about how the next gen crew are going to come together.
Yes, I'm definitely much more anticipating like the card. like the live action shows for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
even anticipating like I would say Prodigy more because I'm very curious about what is Admiral Janeway, her whole
Oh
like
yeah.
search
Yeah.
for the protostar. I feel there's a lot to play with there,
Yep.
and even the preview that we saw at in Star Trek Chicago, the snippet that we got from the next season
Mm-hmm.
of Prodigy or the next
Yes. Right.
10 episodes of Prodigy, I was like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
okay.
Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot about that. I totally,
Yeah.
but actually, I probably should go back and rewatch Prodigy again because I think during my travels on one of the
Travels.
hotels that I was staying at, um, they had Prodigy playing, and
Oh.
they got up to the point where I think it was Nickelodeon. I think I was in the Philippines, and Dennis had fallen asleep. This was post Memorial, and I turned on the
Mhm.
TV and found Nickelodeon, and Prodigy was on. And then once they got on the Protostar in that
Mhm.
first season, in that first episode, I think um, that's
Was
where
it
it cut
dubbed?
off. It
Was it
cut.
dubbed or subtitled?
No, it was not. It was in English. So
Oh,
I
no.
was in the Philippines, so a lot of TV there is in
Okay.
English. Um, so yeah, so then they cut it off after oh man, I can't Zero, right? Zero? Is that his name?
Yes. Wait, what about Zero though?
Zero comes onto the bridge. And that's where it sort of
Huh.
cut off. And I'm trying to remember that must be the end of episode one, but they didn't even play the end credits or anything, and then went into some commercials, and it never came back again.
Okay.
Went into some other cartoons. So I was like, okay. So I have,
Okay.
I think a rewatch of Prodigy is probably in order as well. Um, but anything what are you looking forward to for Lower Decks? I can't,
Yeah, you can't really speak to it. I think that if what maybe you could do is what you before you watch everything, what you were most anticipating.
yes, I will
You have to
share
like,
that. Yes.
shift your mindset.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, yeah, I mean the Kevin Freeman stuff, I'm like, sure. Like, I guess I want to know what happens there. Um, but it's kind of like mild curiosity because we know Captain Freeman's gonna come back. So it's not really like, oh my God, the stakes are so high. Um, I think it's more. I think I'm more curious about some of the relational developments that might happen.
Mm.
For example, between Mariner and Jennifer. Obviously, we got a little bit of that in the finale. I am curious as to how far they take that relationship in the new season. Are we going to continue to kind of like, kind of develop, not really, like Tendi and Rutherford's relationship? Is it going to kind of be teased? Is it just friend zone? Is it like, or is there something more? Because I feel that at least in the first two seasons, I feel we got mixed messages. Like, because sometimes they are friends, but then sometimes it feels more than just friends. And it might just be like a thing that, we never get anything, and it just, we continue to kind of play around with it. Which is fine. Some friendships are like that, like kind of skirt the edge of being something more, but not. So I am curious as to where that goes, And one of the things that I think you and I both really liked in season two is when they kind of mixed up the pair ups, right?
Right, right.
That was
Yes.
like the best episodes were honestly when it was like, yeah, when you got Tendi and Mariner stuck together, and that was actually, and they went on like that girls trip, and that was really enjoyable. That was great. And I really hope that they play a little bit more into that this season. Because I think that changing up that dynamic really made for some really interesting character moments. So yeah, and I would also add, so it would be great to see some of that with the bridge crew too, getting some more unusual pairings with the bridge crew, putting them in these like maybe potentially awkward situations. That's always interesting, and getting the bridge crew a little more involved in the lives of lower deckers, I think could be something cool too. So I think for me, it's more about the relationships and some of the character moments that are sometimes like surprise and delightful. That would be really great to see more of. And then I would say maybe like just the occasional like unexpected like Easter egg or something like that's always funny, and sometimes it's funny when it's like a little bit out of left field and unexpected. So yeah, that's what I would say I'm looking forward to most. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Mike, without spoiling anything.
Yeah, I guess I was
Try to put yourself like back
yeah,
2-3
yes.
weeks.
I'm looking forward to kind of an adventure to get them started, like this whole exonerate Captain Freeman, that piece of it. So there's that. I think, yeah, like you said, I would like to see some interesting pairings. Yeah, and that's really all I can say after having watched
Don't spoil anything, Mike.
it. No, I will not spoil anything for anyone. I would not do that. Yes, I'm looking forward to being able to talk about this more freely. I am, all those things that you shared are definitely on my list of things that I would like to see, for sure. So I think we all know that, at least in one of the previews, that the Deep Space Nine is involved in an episode. So I am really looking forward to that episode. So yeah. And anybody else, anything else that might, pop up from a guest star like point of view. Obviously the Pac-Leds were the big enemy of last season, so I'm curious.
I don't need more Pac-Leds, but
what
yeah.
No, I don't. I'm not curious about them. I'm curious about who could be the next, alien species that's an enemy for the crew of the Cerritos. So
yeah,
that'll be interesting to kind
I feel the
of
Pac-Leds
see.
have been worn out at this
Yeah,
point.
I think we're
Pac-Leds.
done with the Pac-Led. Yeah, I think we're done.
Oh,
with
I think
Pac-Leds,
another thing that I would say is, I would love to see another episode like that is narratively different. Like Three Ships in season 2 was an excellent episode. It was so good, narratively so different than what they've done before. It was just, something experimental. And our focus wasn't even on the Cerritos, it wasn't even on the lower deckers. It was like on these like random ships. And it just worked. It just worked really well. And I think you and I were both surprised how well it worked. But I think Lower Decks is, it's a prime candidate for just very and Strange New Worlds as well. Just a prime candidate for just really out there episodes that are just structurally different, experimental, like whatever, So I would love to see another episode like that that's just like very unique.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how Lower Decks crosses over with Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
That's gonna be interesting.
Definitely experimental, but I think that works because Strange New Worlds is the other show that can be take a risk like that and be okay.
Yeah.
Just due to the episodic format. So
yeah. We'll kind of see what happens with that. I've got different ideas about what could play out there, but yeah. So, anything else on Lower Decks before we move on?
No, I think that covers Lower Decks and our quick preview. So, I mean, it's coming out soon. It's next week, right?
Yeah, next Thursday is episode 1.
Yeah, next Thursday. It's also well timed to the 56-year mission. 56. What do they call it? The
56-year mission in Las Vegas is happening.
Yes.
I think it begins on Thursday. So
yes.
So yes, hopefully there'll be a viewing party there for all the people who are going. We will be here and leaving the next morning for Boston for a wedding for our friends. Our friend is getting married, and so You and Tony and Dennis and I are driving up to Boston on Friday morning,
with
and
Hamish.
uh, it's well, it's funny you say that. Like you're like we're considering leaving him here.
Oh, thank God. I mean, if you must bring him, bring him. But I feel it's going to be tight with 4 people and a dog. But
Yes, yes, we were taking that all into consideration. So, um, but well, the
and he's
final,
not small anymore. He's a big dog,
yes, he's not small anymore. But
sizable.
TBD, a final decision has
Yet to be
we're
made.
95% of the way there. But yes, we
Yeah.
have talked about it so a lot.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. We don't really have anything planned in Boston. I think we're just gonna shoot the shit. I mean, we're gonna be there Friday to Sunday, and
Yeah,
we have the Friday. There's a dinner and then the reception on Saturday, but that's it. I mean,
yeah. So yeah, we're kind of free. We're free a lot of the time. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what
you
we
want
come
to
up with
go
to do.
to the Boston Tea Party ship and reenact the Boston Tea Party?
I don't know if I want to do that.
Oh my God,
Uh,
you get to actually throw boxes over the ship. Come on.
oh really? Interesting. No, I did.
Yeah.
I've never
It's
done that.
well, it's technically a museum. Like
Yes,
it's a Boston
yes.
Tea Party museum, but there is that interactive component where if you choose to do so, you can throw boxes over the ship.
Well, there we go.
I'm all about interactive experiences. So
Apparently you're very excited about this. I did
yeah,
not consider such a thing.
yeah,
But yeah. Yeah,
something to
so
think
I
about.
mean, there's stuff to do, there is stuff to do. And I'm sure we'll be eating our way through Boston as well.
Yeah, I'm cool just like chilling too or whatever. It's, you know,
Yeah. So we'll
as long as
pass.
I get Starbucks, like that's why I just want coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Starbucks, just a quick side note, my desire for and enjoyment of coffee has kind of gone down recently.
Oh my God, you love
Yeah,
coffee.
I know. It's very weird. It's also, yeah, it's just this weird thing that I'm going through right now.
Are you
Um,
depressed? Is it
no,
depression?
no, it is
Do you
not.
have suicidal thoughts?
No, no. But it is, it is one of those things that's got me sort of baffled. But yes, I am. Yeah, I don't
Wow.
know if I'm ready to switch back to hot coffee for the fall like I do, or what. But
Is it because you like OD'd on iced coffee over the summer? Is that a variable here?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I went without iced coffee, on and off in
Asia.
Asia. So yeah. So I don't know. But it's just an interesting development in my palate slash life.
Well, do you have anything like that as a replacement that kind of brings you just a little bit of joy each day?
That's a good point. I don't know that it's been replaced with anything joyous.
Because I do really, it's small, but I
But
do
it is,
really
yeah.
enjoy a coffee. Like, I
No,
don't
yeah,
know.
I do too. I agree. I
It's
agree.
just kind of delightful. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's not like, oh my God, I'm living for coffee, but it's just something, a delight in the middle of the day.
Yes, I
I think
agree. Yeah.
it's nice to have that.
It's usually been a reason to go out in the afternoon, early afternoon.
Right.
And yeah, it's been less so for me over the last couple of weeks. So
Mm,
yeah, I don't know
yeah.
what's going on with that, but
Independent replacement.
yes, I do. That is correct. But anyway,
Yeah.
I know Boston has coffee. I know they have Starbucks.
Hmm.
Uh, it is more of a Dunkin' place, just to FYI. It's more of a Dunkin'
Sensible.
versus, um, but anyway. So Boston next weekend. People are going to be in Las Vegas next
Yeah,
weekend.
we're not going to be there, but we'll be with them in spirit.
Correct. And
And they have a
uh,
panel, right?
yes, they have a Stump the Geek live panel, which is something
What
they've
does that
done.
mean? Stump the what? Stump the geek?
So it's basically trivia questions and to see if they can stump either Bill or Dan or all I know of is stumping Dan, but I don't know if whether Bill's the one asking the questions. I don't know. I've never seen it
Oh,
happen. So and it's been a long time since they've recorded one on Trek Geeks. So
Oh,
I'm a little
it's a
I'm a
thing
little
that they've
it's a
done in the
thing.
past.
It's a thing, yes. It is a thing.
Okay.
So that's happening Thursday. So go on over
I'm
to the
sure we
Rod.
could be stumped very easily. Like there's so
Oh yeah,
much
yeah, yeah. No, there's no way
stuff.
I am a
Like
you are much better with trivia than I am.
but there's so many names. Like,
Yes,
like
true.
so many random guest star names that appeared for 5 minutes in the
Yes.
episode. Like, I don't know.
But you have that brain that just kind of keeps some of that stuff in. That's why I
Yeah, some
always
of
look
it, but it's not consistent.
that's why I always look to you to for the minutia that I often forget. But anyway,
It's okay.
um yeah, so there's that. So go and go. I think they have a table this year too. So yeah, go to right next to fan sets.
Mhm.
The fan sets table will be the Truck Geeks table. So go say hi to the gang, and also
Yes, everyone should go and say hi.
yes, also they're having someone pop over. The woman who plays the voice of uh Prodigy's computer. I
I
can't
swore I
remember her
wouldn't forget
name.
her name. I was like,
Oh well,
never
good.
forget. I don't remember what her name is. What
Oh
is her name?
well,
Oh dear. Oh dear.
yes, here we
Uh,
go.
oh
This
man.
is where the minutia.
But I was like, who is this person? And
Yes, initially we were definitely like, who is this person? But then when it was explained to us
I was
who it
like,
was, her name is oh my gosh, Bonnie Gordon. Bonnie
Bonnie
Gordon.
Gordon. That's right. Bonnie Gordon.
Yes. So Bonnie Gordon is
The
going to be at
voice
the,
of the ProStar computer.
yes, she is going to be at the Trek Geeks table. So go and check that out. She'll be signing and taking pictures, I believe, with people. So go and enjoy that as well. There's a lot of fun stuff that's gonna happen there, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
We have not looked at the schedule because we weren't going, so we don't know what's happening there. But
Maybe next year.
um, maybe next year, perhaps, depending
Because you
on the
said you may not be able to go to Seattle next year, right?
right. Yes, but
Because it's Memorial Day. You had something, you had a wedding,
at a potential wedding,
potential
yes,
wedding.
does.
Yeah.
But then also, since we're talking about that, Dennis and I were also doing some planning last weekend, just thinking about the year ahead and my plans to run a marathon before my birthday in June.
Mm.
And so we were talking about going away that week, which also kind of coincides with all that. So
Oh my
we'll see.
God. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot on the
So yeah,
agenda.
I don't know. So it may be because it may not be able to go to Mission Seattle because I'll be preparing like really like final week preparing for a marathon.
For a marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hardcore.
Yes.
You're so
So
hardcore,
yeah.
Mike.
It's just one of those goals that I set out before my birthday that I wanted to do. And so yeah,
Yeah.
we'll
No,
see
it's
what
great. It's awesome.
happens. Yeah. But
I
yeah, so we
encourage
started doing some
and
planning.
yes, I encourage and edify your effort to run a
Great.
marathon.
I expect you to be on mile 14 cheering me on.
Yeah. Maybe.
So, all right. Well, there's
Wait,
that.
where is this gonna be? Where is this marathon gonna be?
Right now, potentially San Diego. So,
Okay.
because it happens to be on that Sunday before my birthday. So,
Okay.
but we'll see. See what happens.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotta
Cool.
sign up for some races in between that and that to get trained up and all of that stuff and
Have
have
you been
some.
running
I
recently?
have not. So
Okay.
I need to set up some goalposts to get to
Goals.
along the wall. So yeah. So that is what's going on with me. Anything in your life going on? Anything exciting?
Yeah, well, everything's mostly the same. Work is good. I did go on a couple of dates just a couple of weeks ago at this point
Mm-hmm.
with this guy that I met on Tinder who happened to be a Star Trek fan. And it was, it's honestly the first time that I've gone on a date with someone who is a good Star Trek fan, and I say good as in, not just they've seen a couple episodes of The Next Generation.
Right. Yes.
Like they actually know stuff,
Yes.
almost kind of like our level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of just nice. It's nice to, I've never been in a relationship, but I can see how just having common interests and passions it can't be the end all be all, because you can't just, the only thing that connects you is your common interests. But it helps. It really helps. Because
Yes.
it's a good fallback in conversation, because not every conversation can be about like deep shit, or
Yeah.
what is, how are we as a couple? It's like, it's nice to just enjoy stuff together.
Yes.
And to, say how great the latest episode of whatever was, or bitch about how terrible that episode was. And sometimes you don't know. Sometimes that's a springboard for something deeper, and it's just like, it's something that I would want, in a relationship. I think it would be ideal. Obviously, it's, again, who knows,
Right.
but I think it's nice to kind of have those like common interests and those common passions, for sure.
Yeah, I would agree.
So it was just nice. It was just nice to
Cool.
go on a date and to talk. We could talk about stuff and learn about each other, but then we can also, shoot the shit about Star Trek. And
Yes.
it was different. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Oh, cool. That's great.
But yeah, no, but that, that was just a couple of dates, TBD. But yeah, I would say that's the most that's been happening in life, other than the wedding next
Right.
weekend.
Right.
That'll be fun and stuff like that. So
Yep.
yeah, and then soon it'll be winter, and then the year's over. So
I do not want to think
happened
about
very
winter.
quickly.
I'm enjoying these nice, beautiful days of 70 degrees and
Yeah,
cool but
you can feel
comfortable.
fall is around the corner. Feel it.
I would rather not, but thank you.
But it's
Uh,
nice. It's that
no, it
period
is
when it's
nice.
nice.
Yes, it's nice. It's odd to have this in August. Usually this is more September weather,
Right.
but
Because usually August is terrible in New York. It's like so humid, so
yes.
hot.
And we had
So
a good chunk of that before, but
we
now
did.
we're,
Yeah, July it was bad.
yes,
Early August.
I heard. And yes, when I was back in early
Oh yeah,
August.
that's right. You were like not here for a
Yeah.
bunch of that. So
Yeah.
there we go.
There we go. Well, cool. Well, why don't we get into the final bit of our episode this week, which is talking about a movie that we both enjoy and that we mentioned in last week's podcast as a potential idea of things to do, and we chatted about it this week, and now here we are. We are going to talk about the last of the original series full cast movies, Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country.
3 months before retirement. What a way to finish.
We're not finished.
Speak for yourself. One day, one night, Kobayashi Maru.
Bones, are you afraid of the future?
I believe that was a general idea that I was trying to convey.
I don't mean this future.
What is this? Multiple choice?
Some people are afraid of what might happen. I was terrified.
What terrified you specifically?
No more neutral zone. I was used to hating Klingons. It never even occurred to me to take Gorkin at his word. Spock was right.
Try not to be too hard on yourself. We all felt exactly the same.
Oh. Somebody felt a lot worse. I'm beginning to understand why.
Yeah, Mike, I want to ask you why Star Trek Six? Like, why was that? Why that come to mind for you as a discussion point?
Well, it came up in last week's because David Warner, who plays Gorkon in this, passed away recently. So that's part of the reason why.
Right.
He was also in Star Trek Five,
Mm-hmm.
and neither one of us really like Star Trek Five. I mean, it's a fun, it's Star Trek, fine, whatever. But there are some cool scenes in Star Trek Five. But
Sure. Like
Star
Uhura
Trek's-
dancing.
Yeah, that's not one of the ones I've seen. It's one of the
That's
scenes I've seen.
Memorable.
It's memorable, but maybe not in a good way. Except that it's Uhura, but I don't think, yes. Anyway, we're not talking about Star Trek
It wasn't her best
5.
moment. No.
We're not talking about Star Trek 5. We're talking about Star Trek 6. And Star Trek 6 for me is, I would say neck and neck with Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, as being my favorite out of all 10 or even all 13, if we want to count all of the movies, the feature films that are Star Trek, quote unquote. It is my second favorite, almost tied with The Wrath of Khan.
Which we are going to see in
we are going to
theaters
see in a couple weeks, yeah. Which I am also very excited about. But this one is different. This one is it's a little more modern in that it's there's some CGI. There's we get the Excelsior, which we last saw in Star Trek 3 under a different commander. Sulu is captain now, so there's this other storyline going on, and it's just I'll tell you, for me, it rivals The Wrath of Khan in its music as well.
Yeah.
The music I love it so much. It just pumps me up, which is odd. I know it's not really like super pumping up.
No, the music's really good.
Yeah, it's such a orchestral masterpiece, I want to say. And
it's during the age when movies had like lengthy credit scenes at the beginning. That's not really a thing anymore. That's not as popular.
Yes,
Nowadays, movies just go into the action.
Yep.
But Star Trek 6 is definitely from a bygone era where you had a lengthy credit scene towards the beginning along with the title screen. And the score for just that sequence is incredible. It touches on all the different themes and melodies that are touched on throughout the movie itself. But it's this like medley of all the major character themes and action
the Star
themes,
Trek theme and all of it. Yeah, it's it's great.
And I would encourage anyone watching Star Trek 6 for the first time to not skip the credits at the beginning. Do not do it, because it's just names, but honestly, it is an incredible medley that
it's actually one of the best parts of the whole movie, to be honest. Like
the score is really, really, really strong.
Yeah. It's definitely
definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah. So there's that setup.
Speaking of scores, I would say Star Trek 6 and Star Trek 2 are definitely very, very strong score. Star Trek 4 also had a very good score.
Yes.
It was very different. Like Star Trek 4, it matched, I think, the mood of the film, the tone of the film, which is more fun, a little bit more adventure,
a little lighter,
definitely lighter.
Yeah.
Star Trek 6, in the meantime, there's a lot of darker tones to the score, which really fit the film itself. And while Star Trek 2, it's a lot. It definitely fits that like the con aspect,
it's fanfare. It's also like a space battle, and stakes and intensity.
I'm like replaying the Star Trek 2.
Oh yeah, no, it's all great.
We're both like score, like music score geeks. So
yes,
I definitely think Star Trek 6's score is, I agree with you. It's very amazing. Very amazing. Good English, but whatever.
No, it's awesome, and totally sets the tone and just the intensity, and it just
Yeah.
brings you right into the movie. Like it just
Yeah.
brings you right in.
Yeah. And I would say that Star Trek 6, is my favorite. And I agree that Star Trek 6 and Star Trek 2 are both neck to neck. Star Trek 6, I would say edges out a little bit for me because it's a very complex and nuanced film. I think that from a thematic standpoint, I think that there's a lot of reflections in terms of the narrative and what's going on in the real world with the fall of the Soviet Union and the U.S., the relationship between the U.S. and Soviet Union. But I think what is really interesting in that is, the whole idea of quote unquote the undiscovered country in the future, and the way that everyone wants to approach that future is such a pivot point in the film, right? Like that, the whole conspiracy is because it happens because people are afraid of what the future holds because they're so used to hate, they're so used to hating each other.
Yes.
And there's so much nuance to that, and I feel it's like so applicable in any age. Like it's one of the things I love most about Star Trek that I've said repeatedly on this podcast is when they make they create metaphor for real life, but it's done in a way that it applies to us at any point in time. And our perception and our understanding of it might change based upon our context, our current context. But where Star Trek is most powerful is when it can teach us lessons at any point, whether it's in the past or the future. So that's one of the things I really like about Star Trek 6, because it really examines, and this is around the time that Gene Roddenberry was much less involved in Star Trek, and he was kind of on his deathbed, and Star Trek 6 was dedicated to him. But this is when they started to introduce a lot more conflict into Star Trek. Like, that Star Trek, people in the Federation aren't perfect. People disagree. And in this case, you literally have people assassinate, people within the Federation planning to assassinate people. And
higher ups, people who are leading it, so it's not just, it's not just,
it's not everyone gets along and not everyone agrees.
Right.
And I think that it's definitely a very mature film in that context, where we really see a lot more of that gray area of, our heroes not necessarily being the best and brightest examples. Like, that whole dinner scene in the galley is the perfect example of where they allow their prejudices, whether it's about like, oh, they don't have good table manners, or they smell, or they all look the same. Like, our heroes have these prejudices, and I think it's shown how imperfect they are as people. I just think there's so much there. Like, it's just it's a very complex film if you dig into it, and that's why for me it's like my favorite, because I've seen Star Trek 6 probably like at this point 40 times, 50 times. And I enjoy it now as much as I did when I first watched it in like the 90s. And my perception, I think my interpretation and understanding of it has evolved since then, because I am 20 plus years older now, from when I first started. The film is 31 years old at this point, but I watched it, I think, probably in the mid 90s as for the first time. But yeah, it's just like it's interesting to me, like my perception, the way I view it as a fan, has changed with my context. And meanwhile, Star Trek 2, while it's fantastic, I think it's much more straightforward. It's very like much more straightforward.
Oh yeah. There's
a very much black and white villain. In my mind, the Khan is pretty cut and dry as a villain.
Yes, for sure.
But I think the villains in Star Trek 6 is much more complex. Like, and there's not just one villain. Obviously we're given General Kang as he's kind of like, the main, quote unquote main villain, but there's a whole tapestry of villains that play into this film. It's not just one person kind of that is trying to ruin everyone's day. So
Right.
yeah, it's just me, that my mini essay about Star Trek 6. But yeah, I think even in our context today, and how much animosity there is in our world today, I think it's just as relevant,
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is a perfect example of how we view others in the context of we think we know them, and yet we really don't. And the whole hatred of otherness, and how our own prejudice get in the way of treating others with respect first and foremost. And then you're right, it is so nuanced, it's so it can be applied to many different things, but I think it's just as relevant today as it was when it first came out. And in fact, I agree, I think that's why this is such a great film, is because it can be applied to today. And in fact, thinking about that, and I knew you had a much more nuanced view of this, and so as I was watching it, I was trying to think about it, but I also knew that you would come up with some really great ways to view it. Not that I wouldn't, but I tend to just get into it and not think too much about it, just be in the adventure. And I knew that you would go and watch it and apply it and think, oh, that has, this, this applies to today. And I mean, I think the Klingon human, or the Federation Klingon differences, is and how they hate each other, but yet eventually get by it to the point where, they say to one another, Kirk says to Azet Bur, and she says to Kirk, you have restored my faith, my father's faith, and you have restored my son's faith. And so, again, both of those people in their lives were killed for that prejudice.
Like
right?
Well, also their idealism. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. They were killed because they were bringing about change, or Gorkon was killed because of that,
and David was an idealist too. David, he was a scientist. He was working with his mother, and they wanted to bring about a new world. They didn't mean to make the Genesis device a weapon,
right?
They wanted to.
But he didn't have the best view of the Federation or of Starfleet, at least.
No,
he wasn't. But he was
he was an idealist in the sense of he was seeing the world through a scientific lens, right?
Yes, yeah.
And his idealism was really like science can bring about a better future. And I don't think he had certain naivete about him, where because he was so sheltered, that he didn't really, and his mother arguably, they didn't really see the possibility that a Genesis device would be utilized as a weapon when they're doing that initial research. That wasn't their intention.
They didn't know that. But so David was killed because he possessed the knowledge of that and was in the wrong place at the wrong time, essentially, and was killed. Was killed in a very he was killed protecting Savick and Spock. So in that way, he has an honorable death, being the one who defends them at the cost of his own life. So he did but he was killed for as a threat, like because the Klingons wanted something, and
Sure. Yeah.
he was sort of a pawn in that piece. But getting back to Star Trek 6, it's just it's nice to see that redemption at the end, and also that all the people who were involved in the conspiracy are sort of caught. The one thing that on the version that we watched is that it's missing the actual reveal that the Klingon murderer,
the sniper.
Yeah, the sniper was actually Colonel West.
Colonel West,
I think, yeah, who was played by Rene Auberjonois. I never can say Rene's last name, but was played by him. So that's also a cool thing, but also kind of a sad thing not to have that as having that scene cut. Right. I think so in the end, if you didn't know that, you would think the Klingons were actually the ones who were trying to assassinate the president of the Federation, but in reality it was this is Colonel in Starfleet.
Well, they do specifically name Admiral Cartwright as well.
Yes.
And obviously Valeris. Yeah. So
and Noclus, the Romulans. So even the Romulans had a piece in it, and just trying to destabilize. Very Romulan of them to help to support destabilizing the Federation. It's
very on brand.
Right. Yes. And also, interestingly enough, to have a Romulan representative on
I was
Earth.
just thinking that. I'm like, why is the president even asking for the Romulan ambassador's opinion?
Yes.
Like, why even do that? You know that he's not going to be helpful. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's there.
Yeah, I don't either. In fact, knowing Romulans like we do, why would you even let him in the room with the Federation president? Oh, granted there are other people there, including Sarek, and we do get a brief scene with Sarek in this. So
I think the interesting thing was this movie came out after. Was it after the episode Sarek? Yeah, it was after. It was because. Yeah, Sarek was season 3, which is
okay. Yeah, this is 1999 and 1991. So so it was just so much to unpack there. Yeah, I can't even believe we're just thinking about the whole Romulus thing. Romulan.
No, I thought about it yesterday. I was watching. I was like, why is he talking? I was like, why?
I didn't think about it until just now. I thought it was But again, back then it was the 3 major powers were Romulus, Kronos, and Earth. So, or the Federation. So, those were kind of the 3. But the other piece of this is that I do like is that each of our characters got some spotlight.
Yes.
Which I think was a really nice send off for all of them.
I don't know about Horror's moment when she's trying to flip through books. How do I say this? And first of all, I feel that that wasn't she should know how to say.
Yeah,
she should know how to talk in Klingon or something. She's a communications officer. It kind of made her look dumb. And they're all literally just flipping through books. I'm like, what? The computer can't be used. I mean, it was just obviously it was a gag, but
it was
literally just
it was definitely a gag. But also, when I was watching that scene, interestingly enough, I was like, why not just ask the computer to respond, and then you just repeat back what the computer says?
It's like, Alexa, can you please respond and say in Klingon this? Yeah,
exactly. So.
And sure, the universal translator can be recognized, but maybe, if the computer said it, whatever, it's fine.
Right. And also, if you want to really break down that scene also, I'm thinking they're speeding across the quadrant, right? They're speeding through Klingon space. And you see that on the screen and you're like, wouldn't the listening post kind of pick up on the fact that, man, that junk freighter or whatever you want to call yourself is moving pretty fast for a junk freighter, so there's a few little details there that maybe aren't.
What do they say? We're like condemning supplies or something?
Yeah, we're condemning supplies. Yeah. So
ridiculous. No,
I mean,
there are a few moments like that. I'm like, it's a little odd. It's like they're playing it for laughs.
I mean, there were that was definitely like the comedy moment, but there's also the very serious moments, like with Spock and Valeris talking about the future and how the future will take care of itself. And that what's your favorite line from that scene? I can't even remember it. Logic is
just the beginning of wisdom, Valeris, not the end.
Right? Yeah,
which I think is a great line.
It is the excellent line.
That's so good. No, there's a lot of like moments like it's very poetic. Like I really like a lot.
I really also enjoy the operation on the torpedo with Spock and McCoy. There's some comedy in there. I wish he'd shut up, and fascinating. Would you like to operate on a torpedo, Doctor? Fascinating. There's just a lot of little things that I think for the most part they did really well in sending off. Guess who's coming to dinner? Chekhov says,
right.
So there's just a lot in there. And obviously, I think you shared with me, having Kim Cattrall being hilarious,
very disorienting.
Yes, considering you just watched.
I just rewatched all Sex and the City, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's Samantha."
Yes,
and she's really, she's like the tallest out of the four women in Sex and the City, and she's like really short compared to Leonard Nimoy.
Well, I don't know if that's that in a lot of ways, they can stage people in a way that is
maybe
I
don't know.
I don't know how tall Leonard is. I don't know how.
Well, Sarah Jessica Parker is very short. She's like 5'3", 5'4". Like she's very small.
Okay.
So maybe it doesn't take much for Kim Cattrall to look much taller than Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah.
I don't know. So side notes.
Thank you for the side notes on Sex and the City. And, so I'm glad. At first I was disoriented by having this, Vulcan lieutenant who kind of out of the blue almost sort of replaces Savick, right?
Savick, yeah.
But I can't imagine Savick turning bad.
I can't.
So in that sense, I'm glad that they created a new character like this. For and they also needed a helms person,
right? Because Sulu was off captaining.
So I did enjoy this some of the scenes with I did enjoy the scenes with Sulu on the bridge and his crew, and and
apparently there's a whole other story, as we learned from Voyager, if you recall the Tuvok episode where they go back in time. Yes. They had a whole side adventure where they apparently go try to save Kirk and McCoy, and it doesn't pan out.
It doesn't work out. Man, now I have to rewatch that just to kind of be more fresh.
No, it's a good episode.
Yeah, flashback. It was nice to have George Takei on Voyager. That was really nice.
But they also had the other
Gracie. She had Grace. Yeah, they had
the other bridge crew from Excelsior on.
Yeah,
and they tried to get a lot of actors back.
Yeah,
which is great. Yeah.
There were a few things. Few other foibles in the. There's a shot during the initial opening scenes where they give a shot of the science officer. He's actually next to Sulu, but then they give another shot in that same thing of him sitting down at his station, looking up at the shaking camera or whatever. So, and then, the shots of the Excelsior are great until they do the whole wave thing, which is all computer generated. And the Excelsior looks so different. Noticeably different in the CGI versions.
Sure.
But again, early days, 1990. Yeah. For CGI.
Yeah, I think all things considered, they did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, it's a great movie. A lot of relevance to today's world that we're living in.
Yeah. No, I was
Um,
gonna say, and I touched on it, but I think this idea that there's always gonna be people that are afraid of the future.
mhm.
Um, honestly, that it's actually kind of sad how
How relevant
much,
it is 31 years
yeah,
later.
it's
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
relevant, like, because so much of, I think, the discourse about everything, societal and political, it really boils down to people being afraid of what the future is going to bring.
Hmm.
Whether it's the future of the status quo, the future of the threat to the status quo, or
Hmm.
the threat to their identities. There's so many different ways to apply that thinking, but I think a lot of it does boil down to fear,
Yeah,
and
fear of the unknown, fear
fear of the
of
unknown.
things changing, in such a way that people will not have what they have now.
Right. Yeah, and they're
So
so used to, maybe they're so used to hate, or they're so used to being
yeah,
comfortable,
absolutely. Yeah.
you know, um, and they're just so used to living the way that they are used to living that
Which in
they're willing to
in
kill people for it.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, exactly.
um,
There's that. There's also, yeah, just the way that they treat people who are different.
right.
Um, yeah, it's so relevant to today.
Yeah,
It's
it's very relevant. It's kind of sad, but
yes.
it's actually kind of it's kind of disheartening sometimes. But I think one thing that Star Trek teaches us is that there's always hope. There's always hope for a
There
better
is hope,
future,
right? Yeah.
even if we can't
And
see it ourselves.
there is a better future, that's not, or the
Yeah,
future is better and it will get better,
yeah.
so there's that as well. But it's definitely hard to see that sometimes,
Oh
and
yeah.
which makes
But I
it,
think you can say the same thing. Like you can say, like, there's no way that Kirk at the beginning of the movie could have seen where things were going to go, you know,
right.
and his judgment was, and his heart was just so clouded with
Yes.
distaste and hate. There was I don't think he could have really predicted, like, where he would have ended up by the end of the movie, and
No,
even the conversation with
he had to
sorry,
go
go ahead.
through that. He had to go
He
through
did.
that
He did.
that
Yeah.
process of, being, practically tortured, being, wrongly accused, and then
Hmm.
essentially tortured. If you want to think about Rorpente as sort of a place of torture and uncomfort and
Hmm.
discomfort and threat to life and limb and all the things that, you know, and how everything unfolded as far as, you know, uh, Marta coming at them at the right moment, and the whole
Hmm.
idea that they had to be killed in a way that would make sense. They couldn't just be assassinated. They had to be, doing something wrong that would ultimately end
Right.
them, to kind of allow for that, not to cause any additional issues. So, killed while escaping is much easier than, an assassination. And,
Right.
um, you know, so there's, definitely all of that. Yeah, I think that this is definitely a transformative journey for Kirk.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, I think one of the best lines in this movie is when Bones asks him, "What were you afraid of exactly or specifically?"
Hmm.
Um, and I thought that conversation in the on Rurapente in the bunks
Right. Right. Right.
was one of the things that I love about Star Trek, just having this really heart to heart, one on one with,
Hmm.
and the same with with Kirk and Spock in his quarters, reality is somewhere in between. We're both extremists, and reality is somewhere in between. So there's just some really touching, special moments between these three, often called the big three in Star Trek.
No, there are a lot of great moments like that, like the first moment between Spock and Kirk in at the briefing at the beginning of the movie, and that's obviously where they're most far apart, right? Literally and figuratively.
Yes.
Like literally,
literally across the room. Yes.
But obviously a metaphor for how the divide between them.
Yes.
But you have all these really good conversations. Even I really like Asa Four. I don't think she got as much screen time as she could have, but at the dinner, she was like, she called them out. She was like, the Federation is really just, if you can only hear yourselves, human rights. The Federation is really just a Homo sapiens only club. Present company excluded. But it really is. She points out their bigotry. She points out their intrinsic fear of
their bias, their racism,
So I really liked her character because she didn't beat around the bush. She's very and I wish she got more screen time, but there are just a lot of those moments when these small character moments or these conversations that are just like they're speaking truth to each other, and it's also very poetic at the same time. Like I love that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. She does kind of take on the role of calling out the bigotry and the racism and the prejudice. And it would have been great to see her kind of give a speech and talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, I would love to see her. She's awesome, and I love her outfit. Like she looks fierce.
Yeah, she did. No, that's a good call out. Yeah, for sure. So much good stuff in this movie. There's a lot there. Yeah, I mean,
I could probably write an essay about Star Trek sex, to be honest.
Yeah,
there's just really so much to mind there.
Yeah, definitely. There is so much in that movie to just unpack, and its relevance to today is uncanny and disappointing and sad and not in light of the film, but just in light of where we are in this world and our times now. So I hope that this movie doesn't become timeless, but it is timeless for 31 years so far. So and probably will be timeless forever, because at some point, in all of humanity's existence, the other is always something to be feared by someone.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, sadly, but it's sort of part of the human condition almost. So, I mean, for thousands of years, when the Homo sapiens killed the Homo erectus or whatever they were called before, I don't even know. So it's something that's in our DNA from the very beginning of time. So, but one would hope that enlightenment will come at some point. But until then, we have Star Trek to watch and to reflect upon. So, and
absolutely,
wow, it's just I sort of almost want to go watch it again. It's just it's sort of it's a comfort food, but it's also, when you start to think about it, you're like, whoa, this is almost a little too real.
Yeah, for sure.
But a great movie, and the part of it being the last film to star the entire original series cast. I love the fanfare at the end, and them their names, signatures scrolling across the screen. That's you know, I don't. I wonder. Uh, I wonder if we'll see something similar to that at the end of Picard. Something
Ooh, that'd be cool.
that
Oh, that'd be
something
cool.
that
Just yeah, they didn't get that in Nemesis, that's for sure.
they did not.
Yeah.
So this is hopefully, that would, saying that out loud, that is now an expectation for the finale of Picard.
That would be very, very cool.
With the original theme of Star Trek: The Next Generation playing over it, that would be amazing. So anyway,
Terra Metalis. We have expectations.
Yes, we should tweet at Terry Metalis now and say, we want a Star Trek 6 fanfare type for the finale of Picard. Yeah, that would be amazing. That would bring tears to my eyes, I think.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I love it. Well, they're still in post, so there's still time.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And here's hoping that we still get that and maybe after some Prodigy. Maybe they'll start that in the end of 2022. But anyway,
they might surprise us, but we'll see.
We'll see what happens. And oh, you know what I wanted to mention earlier to you about that whole thing is that Star Trek Day is coming up, and so maybe we'll have some news and announcements. About what to expect.
When is Star Trek Day?
It is, I want to say September 8th. Is that
why is it Star Trek Day again? What is it supposed to commemorate? I only know Captain Picard Day and First Contact Day. What's Star Trek Day supposed to be?
Star Trek, the date that the first
episode
aired,
September 8th.
Which is September 8th.
Google says September 8th.
Yes, September 8th. So maybe we'll get some exciting announcements then. That'll be cool. They did a nice job with that last year. With the orchestra and everything and COVID times and everything. So maybe we'll see a little bit more about that. But well, I think that does it for our discussion of Star Trek.
That was a lengthy, deep discussion. So.
It was, yeah.
That was a lot.
It was it's a great movie and clearly still relevant and important today. So
yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
And everyone should see it. If you haven't seen Star Trek 6, please watch it. I mean,
and actually, if it's been a while, if it's been a while, go watch it again. It's a great great movie. So
yeah,
worth watching anytime.
For sure.
All right. Well.
Well, Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about our sponsor, who is going to be in Las Vegas next week? Good.
They are, and
we won't be, but they will be.
Fansets is the exclusive sponsor of Deep Space Pride and the Trek Geeks podcast and network, and they are going to be in Las Vegas with some amazing pins for you to purchase if you're going there. The Strange New Worlds Memorial pin set, they'll have 100 of those there. So if you want one of those, and if you've been waiting until Las Vegas to get it, you better get there early. They're also exclusively going to sell the Command Science and Engineering or Medical, I cannot remember, pins from Strange New Worlds. So the Deltas. They'll have some of those that are going to go on sale this fall. So they'll have some of those there. They also have recently released the Prodigy Delta, as well as the Bajoran Militia badge. So go check them out for that. They've got some new Women of Trek. They've got the Prodigy pins, all kinds of pins for you to go and see in Las Vegas. So go check them out. Tell them that you heard about them on Deep Space Pride. And but if you're not going and you want to pick up any of these pins, so they still have some Memorial Set pins online, and all of these other pins, except for the Strange New Worlds Deltas. Those are coming out later. But head on over to fansets.com, put a bunch of pins in your cart. If you're you're going to get free shipping if you get this Memorial pin set right off the bat. But if you order more than $30 worth of other pins, you're going to get free shipping in the US. And if you use the code TrekGeeks, all one word, you are going to get 10% off your order. And we want to thank Fansets for being the exclusive sponsor of Deep Space Pride and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Thanks, Fansets. All right. Well, we would love to hear from everyone, particularly when it comes to what you might be looking forward to when it comes to Lower Decks, or we would love to hear about your thoughts on Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. You can email us at deepspacepride@gmail.com, and you can also reach us on Twitter and Instagram at deepspacepride.
There we go. Well, it's another late night here in
It is.
New York.
Well, we got a late start today, and we had some technical issues.
We had some technical issues. This almost didn't happen. Also, if you've noticed that our audio is not as strong as it normally is, we are resolved. We had mic issues, so we are both on different headsets this time. So,
it's suboptimal.
Yes. So, pardon any audio discrepancies that you might notice this week. Hopefully we can get our microphones working next week. And we have a special guest next week to talk about counseling in Star Trek.
Mental health
and mental health in
Star Trek.
Mental health in Star Trek.
Potentially lack thereof. So
well, that's an even better one than counseling. So mental health in Star Trek, we will have a special guest who is an expert in some of this and who is also a Star Trek fan. So
yes, and a member of the LGBTQ community as well.
Yes.
So yes, this should be an interesting discussion, and that's going to tide us over until we are ready to talk about Lower Decks. So
yes,
another episode that we had to get it a little original and creative, but I think that we came up with something that everyone should enjoy. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and that'll come out while everyone's at Las Vegas. So so if you're not going, you'll have something cool to listen to, and you'll also get to watch Lower Decks season 3, episode 1. So, So until next time, thanks for listening, and we'll see you all here next week.
Bye, everyone.
Deep Space Pride is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com, or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Coconut.